The 76ers got Paul George, extended Maxey. Daryl Morey is cooking, baby. He is cooking. Let's go. Hello, folks. Welcome to Jeremy Hadler's YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jeremy Hadler. And today I'm going to be talking about the 76ers, ladies and gentlemen. Do the 76ers, a new big three that has Joel Embiid, Paul George now, who just got signed, Tyrese Maxey, who just got extended, lead them to a deep run to playoffs, ultimately get them to the Eastern Conference Finals and to the NBA Finals, and finally hoist the Larry O'Brien Trophy? Can they do that? But before I start, make sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you've not done so. Would appreciate it. So heading to free agency, the Sixers had the biggest cap space in the NBA. They had the biggest cap space of over $66 million. And they could literally use that to go sign a max player without doing any sign trades, getting rid of any players. They could literally just sign one max player. And they decided to use that on Paul George, which the detail for that, folks, is Paul George signed with the Sixers as of second day of free agency in the morning at like 3 a.m. on the East Coast side for 4 years for $212 million. This is the fourth team that Paul George will be part of, drafted by Indiana, then went to OKC, the Thunder, then went to the Clippers, and now to Philly. Daryl Morey wanted a superstar who could be a playmaker, two-way player, could play great defense, and is a good third option star. And they landed Paul George, which to me, it's a good signing as of right now. And to give you some background about this with the Paul George coming to Philly, a couple weeks ago, Joel Embiid and Paul George were on ESPN during the NBA Finals, like during Game 3, Game 4, whatever it was. And you could clearly see Embiid when he was talking about stars, like when the Sixers like trying to work this offseason, you could see literally the wink that Embiid gave to Paul George. And that kind of signaled that the Sixers were going after Paul George. They were going after him. And so they got the deal done. Now, to add more of the contract details, again, 4 years for $212 million. He has a player option in the 2027-2028, which is his final season of the contract, as what it's going to be. And there were multiple teams heading into this trying to get to Paul George. There were the Warriors, the Clippers, the Magic, the Pistons, and the Sixers. Sixers, they had the most money. Warriors, they could only do it if Paul George had opted in his deal, which he did not. So that left the Warriors out. Clippers, they had a year to give him the extension. They already gave Kawhi Leonard the extension, but they didn't tell Paul George that they're extending him. And Paul George had a final, like everyone here, to see on the news. So that was a bit of annoyance to Paul George. So Paul George slowly got away from the Clippers. And at the end of day one of free agency, the Clippers made the announcement that they were not going to bring back Paul George. So with that intentions, it led to Philadelphia most likely as the heavy favorites then to land Paul George, because Paul George was having meetings with the Orlando Magic, the Pistons, the Clippers, and the 76ers, of course. And so with that, Pistons, they had nothing out there. They really don't. Now they got Tobias Harris, which they can have go fun with that, which we're going to talk about that a little bit. They had a shot because they had the second most cap space money, but knowing Paul George, he wanted to go to a winning team, which currently the Pistons are not a winning team right now. Magic, they are slowly, but Paul George wanted to go somewhere where they could definitely be title contenders. And that's the 76ers, because you could go look at the 76ers for so many years of the playoffs, losing the first round or second round, haven't gotten to the Eastern Conference Finals. And the main part of the reason why they haven't gotten to it is Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid has either not shown up in the playoffs as normally, sometimes he has, but most of the time he hasn't, and he's been hurt a lot. And that's been the case for Joel Embiid, is his injury status. So with that, the Sixers finally got him. Now, I'll give you a little bit of stats about him, but to give it more context about with Paul George heading to Philly a bit more, the 76ers pretty much gave away James Harden and PJ Tucker for 2 first-round picks and Paul George, pretty much, because we can go back to the beginning of the season where the Sixers traded James Harden for rotational players that include KJ Martin, Nicholas Batum, who is not going to be a Sixer anymore, fortunately, Marcus Morris, and a couple other guys too. They were on like their 1 year, about the end of their contracts for the Sixers. So pretty much that's what the Sixers got, plus the 2 first-round picks, and they got rid of James Harden. Now, at the time, the Sixers, they were willing to do it because James Harden did not show up in the playoffs, and we saw that against Boston. We really saw that, especially when he had the shot to beat Boston and blew it. So That's why I traded James Harden. But pretty much the Sixers got great value out of that and fleeced the Clippers because those two first round picks now are very valuable because we don't know if the Clippers are going to be a lottery pick team for those upcoming picks or not. We don't know, but it could be very valuable and good trade asset too for the Sixers. But to give you some stats about Paul George with the Clippers, 34 years old as of right now. He's a 9-time All-Star, spent the past 5 seasons with the Clippers, averaged 23 points, 6 rebounds, 4.5 assists, and 1.5 steals over 260 regular season games with LA. And he averaged this past season 22.6 points, 5.2 rebounds, and 3.5 assists this season. He was pretty good for shooting wise. He had about 39% from the 3-point line. He had over 40% for mid-range, which was pretty good to see that. Now, I'm going to give you a bit of pros and cons here. Then I'm going to get to the fit with the team. The pros that I like about with Paul George is he's a two-way player. He's a great scorer, plays amazing defense, something that Tobias Harris can do, which we're going to talk about again. Has the experience of in the postseason, has gone as far as the Eastern Conference Finals and the Western Conference Finals. Those are the best he's ever gotten. He has great leadership. And he has great athleticism. When you need him to be versatile and play different positions, he has that and he's very athletic. Now, the bad things that stick out to me with Paul George. Number one, he's 34 years old. He's getting a bit there, almost going to start declining a little bit here. A lot of money the Sixers gave to him. They gave him a lot of money, over $212 million for 4 years. That's a lot of money. Another concern is the injuries. Now, he's been hurt the past couple of seasons, but last season he actually played a lot of throughout the regular season. He played a lot of those games. Now, another thing that concerns me with Paul George is his injury concern. Throughout his entire time with the Clippers, he's been hurt, like Kawhi Leonard. Last season, he actually played a lot of games and actually played over 70 games in the regular season, so that was pretty good. So you need to see him be healthy. If he's healthy, he's going to be lights out and help you with the game. He's going to help the Sixers out lots. And the other concerns I have is his consistency, playoff performance, turnovers, and efficiency. Like with James Harden, he would turn over the ball and was not consistent in the postseason. Paul George, he's gotten a little bit better, but he's still inconsistent in the postseason sometimes. Sometimes you would see him have a great game here and there, and then he would just mess up. This is what I need difference between Paul George. He needs to show up in the playoffs. He needs to do it for the Sixers because we can go look at the Sixers playoff history, the past 6 years, whatever, since we got in the first year with Joel Embiid. They have not had a playoff guy. They haven't had a guy who's been clutch and show up in the playoffs, really. Jimmy Butler is the only excuse to me. Everyone else has not done it. Nobody else has really done it in the Sixers history if you look at the past couple years with the Sixers playoff history. If you look at that. But again, he needs to improve that. He needs to get more consistent and have better playoff performance. Now, where do I see the fit with Paul George? The fit where I see him is he's the third scorer. He's replacing Tobias Harris. That's a great thing because Tobias Harris was not great for us, and we could definitely tell with that contract and the playoff performance he had. Terrible. But he's the third scorer, and number one is obviously Joel Embiid, but Tyrese Maxey is number two. He has to be number two because he's the guy who's being the general out there, carrying the ball, and you can't take the ball out of Tyrese Maxey's hands and give it to Paul George's lap. You can't do that because we saw that with James Harden. It did not go so great. I mean, Maxey played fine, but he did not get to show his true potential, and that was a big concern to me. So Tyrese Maxey has to have the ball. He has to have the ball in hands. Other part I like about Paul George is his defense. That's a great fit with the team because he can go up against Jalen Brunson, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum. Unlike Tobias Harris, which he showed against those guys, Paul George can do that. Paul George can do that and create better defense, especially in Nick Nurse's system as a defensive-minded head coach. That's what we like to see there. Other things I liked about him was the Sixers desperately needed help on the wing, and he provides that as a two-way player. He has great playmaking, which he can set himself apart, and that is what I really like about him with the Sixers. Third scorer, defense, offense, playmaker, and can isolate a bit. That's what I really like, and he's great in the wing for the Sixers. That is going to be fantastic. So very happy to see it with Paul George. Hopefully it works. Hopefully it does. But I really like this signing here for the Sixers. They got a decent guy, and this definitely puts the Sixers into title contention. Next news that came up was Tyrese Maxey agrees to a 5-year deal, $204 million extension with the Sixers. Last year, he averaged 25.9 points, 6.2 assists for the Sixers, and he had multiple 30-point games in the postseason against the New York Knicks, which was pretty amazing to see. He had game winners, and he was very clutch. Now, the thing about Tyrese Maxey that not everyone knows about was he got drafted very late for the Sixers, down in the 20s when he got drafted back in COVID in 2020, I believe it was, when he got drafted. Everyone did not believe in him. Everyone doubted him. Now you look at him now. He's one of the best scorers in the NBA. He's a fantastic guy. He's going to be one of the faces of the NBA in the future, and he's going to be super good. I represent my guy because I love this guy, but Maxey is so good. He's going to be super good. I really like him. Now, to get more of the contract details for Tyrese Maxey, he will start at $35,147,000. That's 25% of the salary cap for this year for the Sixers, and will be worth a total of $203,852,600. So, again, with the contract, he has no option at all in his contract, so he's going to be with the Sixers for 5 years unless they really try to trade him. But Tyrese Maxey is with the Sixers, and I love it. Just a fun guy to watch, especially if you're an NBA fan. He's one of the best, and definitely going to be helping out with the Paul George and Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. That's a great trio right there. So that's going to be fantastic. I really love that. So Adrian Wojnarowski posted that of the Paul George sign and the Tyrese Maxey extension. Love to see that. So far, good news for the Sixers. There's some underrated deals I really like the Sixers made too. Number one here, Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond signs with the Sixers for a 2-year deal for $10 million. It's a player option, year 2. The Sixers finally bring him back because the Sixers' rebounding has been terrible, and you saw that in the playoffs for the past couple of years, ever since Drummond left. Andre Drummond is the best backup center to Joel Embiid in his entire career, in my opinion. He has been very helpful to the Sixers, and he would show up and get a lot of those rebounds when you need him to be, and give rest for Joel Embiid and make sure he stayed a little bit more healthy and contribute when the second unit came out on the court. That was very helpful. Now, Andre Drummond spent the first half of the season for the Sixers in the 2021-2022 season. For the Sixers ultimately departed with him by trading him to the Brooklyn Nets for the James Harden trade at the trade deadline. Now, his stats from this past year, he averaged 8.4 points, 9 rebounds, while shooting 55.6 from the field in 79 games. Pretty good. I mean, the points, that's not going to be that important. He's got to get a couple buckets here and there. But my real concern with him is just I need those rebounds. If he can do it again like he did the past couple of years, I would really love to see that. And he's a 4-time rebound champ, so that's a pretty good thing to me. Now, over his time with the Sixers, to give you some stats when he was with us, he averaged 6.1 points, 8.8 rebounds, 2 assists, 1.1 steals, while shooting 53.8% from the field. So very similar numbers except for the points, just 2-point difference there. But that's pretty much the stats. So pretty much similar stats there. Now, where do I see the fix? I mentioned before, you're providing better rebounding for the Sixers, better defense, give Joel Embiid more time to rest up and be contributing the second unit, and they make up for those lack of rebounds because that's pretty good. He has the playoff experience. He's a 2-time All-Star, as I mentioned before, 4-time rebound champion, and he's 31 years old. That's not that old in the NBA. When you get to 34, 35, like Paul George, then you're concerned a little bit. But he is still doing pretty well. He's still doing pretty well, and I think this is a home run swing for Daryl Morey. He did a pretty good job bringing back Andre Drummond to finally address this position because we have Paul Rizzo, which we're going to talk about a little bit, but they finally addressed this, and I really like this move here. So that's one of my underrated moves I really like. The next player the Sixers did deal with, which I like a bit, is Eric Gordon. Signed the veteran minimum deal for the Sixers. Daryl Morey brings a former Rocket back to the Sixers. And again, Daryl Morey has brought so many former Rocket players to the Sixers. My concern with him is he's 36 years old. However, he can still play, which I'll give you stats in a bit. And an interesting fact about him, he was teammates with Paul George in LA, so that's a good chemistry fit right there for the team. To give you some stats about Eric Gordon, he averaged 11 points in 27.2 minutes per game last season. He shot very well over the course of his career, but last season, he shot pretty well because with the Phoenix Suns, he shot 44.3% from the field and 37.8% from beyond the three-point arc. That is pretty good. So again, he can make those quick buckets and get those 3-pointers that you need him to. he's going to be a good player coming off the bench for the Sixers. So I like this move a lot. I think it's pretty good, especially getting a veteran minimum. I think it helps the Sixers outbid and just gives them more offense because they need more offense. As I'm going to be going through this bench here for the Sixers, and we're going to talk about how they can get all the way to a deep playoff run. We're going to talk about that. But Eric Gordon definitely helps the Sixers outbid. And finally, the last player the Sixers got so far, which this was a no-brainer. I really wanted this player back so badly. Kelly Oubre is back with the Sixers. He re-signs with them for a 2-year deal, $16.3 million with a player option for his second year with the 2025-2026 season. The things I really liked about Kelly Oubre was his passion, his energy on the court. Great offensively and defensively. He was a stud out there. And the fact that the Sixers got a veteran minimum deal last year was a huge steal for the Sixers because let me give you some stats about him. In 68 games he played 30.2 minutes, averaged 15.4 points a game, 44.1% from the field, 31.3% from the three-point range, 5 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 1.1 steals, and that was just on the veteran minimum. So this is another presence I really like for the Sixers to get him. He's 28 years old. I think he was worth it of this contract. They needed to bring him back, and they did. It really helps the Sixers out. It really does because he was great for the Sixers down the stretch when Joel Embiid was hurt, and they need someone to step up like Tyrese Maxey. Kelly Oubre was there to help step up for the Sixers, and he is so good with going into that lineup and playing for the Sixers. He was so good for us, so I really like that. So that was a big thing for the Sixers that I wanted them to bring back. That was the number one player I wanted the Sixers to re-sign out of the pending free agents for the Sixers. Now, the big picture, back to circle to the question here again. Can this new big three for the Sixers and the team in general lead them to a deep run in the playoffs? It can. It can. But the problem, though, is big threes. The problem with big threes is they have not worked out the past couple years. If you go look at the recent champions, they did not have big threes. They came as a collective team. So that's my big concern with this is you can't just be like the Phoenix Suns and have like the 3 best players in NBA and have like no bench. That is the big concern for me for the Sixers with this new big three. Is it's great that you got Paul George, but if someone goes down, you need the bench to step up for you. Where is that going to go? That's my big concern for me. Because they still have to fill out the roster still. And a couple guys they could bring back, which depends on some moves. Because for me, I think the Sixers are going to make a move soon of trade-wise because Paul Reed, again, they have 3 centers now at this point, and I think that Paul Reed, get him out of there. He's not lived his potential for the Sixers, and they need to create some cap space because they really need to fill out that roster, and you cannot have 4 centers. That's just not good for us. So with that, they need to go after another guy. Could be a forward, could be another guard here. I would appreciate the Sixers to get someone like that. Guys you could target is Reggie Bullock or Kyle Lowry. I wouldn't mind getting Kyle Lowry. You know, he's pretty old. He'd just be a vocal presence and be a leader from the bench. I wouldn't mind him. And he's also did fine with the Sixers despite not getting that much points. He was good for us a bit, so I liked him there. But I will say so far for the Sixers right now, Daryl Morey is cooking right now. He is cooking. When you give him the money and you allow him to trade up and do all this, he's done pretty well so far. Now we'll wait to see what the results are. But so far this offseason, I really liked what he's done, and I appreciate that. So that's a good thing. Now, where do I see the Sixers right now compared to the rest of the East as we currently are in this free agency? I see him as the second best team in the East because Boston, number 1. We are not there yet. Paul George helps you get there, but you need the bench to step up because Boston, they got Porzingis, Holiday, Tatum, Brown. They just extended Derek White because they have a strong bench too. So again, you got to watch out for Boston here. If you want to take them out, you got to build a strong bench. The reason why I'm going to give them number 2 here because there's really no other team besides the New York Knicks and a little bit of the Orlando Magic, the Bucks. It depends really about the chemistry and Doc Rivers' fits. Really depends on that. But Magic, they're slowly creeping up. New York Knicks, they beat the Sixers, obviously, but I just don't see it with the Knicks because as the second best team because they lost one of their best players in free agency, Hartenstein. because he fell very well against Joel Embiid. He did pretty well against him. And you lose that, you have Mitchell Robinson, which Mitchell Robinson is not a bad option, but you need help there. You need help there. So I'm going to give the Sixers here number 2. Knicks are just below. I mean, I let the Mikal Bridges is going to be deadly costly because you gave up lots of first round picks. So that's going to definitely wait to see, because you can have like a Paul George incident where he gets traded to the Clippers and you see the amount of value that the Thunder got from that trade, because it has paid off for the Thunder very much so. So you really got to watch out for that. It really depends if the Villanova Knicks can really do it. Yeah, because they got so many former Villanova players. I'm calling that. But it really depends on that. So I'm going to give them the number 3 here. Indiana, again, they are going to be pretty good, but I just don't see them as like a true serious threat to the Sixers as of right now. So I'm going to give the Sixers here number 2. And I do think that they can go to a deep run in the playoffs, especially to the Eastern Conference Finals with Paul George, because Paul George shows up, Embiid shows up a bit, Maxey, you know he's going to show up. The team just shows up and stays healthy, knock on wood, because the past seasons we have seen guys have gotten hurt, especially Joel Embiid gets hurt every year. Every year it's the playoffs, he always gets hurt. If he stays healthy and the rest of the guys stay healthy, they can do fine, because we saw him last year when Joel Embiid went out. Nobody thought the Sixers would do pretty good and maybe miss the playoffs or not get a very high seed. The Sixers actually won a lot of games without Joel Embiid, and Maxey was one of the big reasons why they won, and so did Kelly Oubre. But that just shows you how good a coach Nick Nurse was. Obviously, they lost to the New York Knicks in the first round, but you see this season, it could change a bit for the Sixers. So I'm really excited to see what the Sixers bring here this upcoming season. Kind of excited to see Paul George. It really depends if he just shows me consistency. Would like that. But again, I think the Sixers can lead to a deep run in the playoffs, but a big 3 is not going to side for me. They might have the best big 3 players in the NBA as of right now, but that's not going to matter. You got to have a strong bench if you want to win the championship, because you look at the past champions, they've always had a strong bench. And the Sixers, they have a bench, but can it be great? You got to build out that bench. That's what I need to see from that. But let me know, folks. Again, that is my take on the Sixers' new big 3. Lead them to a deep run in the playoffs. Let me know in the chat, folks. Would appreciate hear your thoughts about the Sixers. And another good thing I forgot to mention about the Sixers is Tobias Harris is gone. Off the books. We're free. No more Tobias Harris. No more Tobias Harris. So that is off the books, and now we wait to see if the Sixers make any more moves. But as of right now, I really like these moves here. I give the Sixers an A- as this free agency right now. I would give them higher up, but the money, again, paid a little bit with Paul George, but I really like what the Sixers done. So I give an A- so far for this. But let me know, again, folks, let me know in the chat. But that's a wrap for the studio. Again, that's my Sixers content, folks. Can the Sixers finally get to the Eastern Conference Finals? Let me know in the chat, folks. But that's wrap for the studio, folks. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.